My name is Brian Westley Johnson, and I want to welcome you to another edition of Soulivity Live. Hey, my sister, how are you?
It's Lent, right? Yeah. we might need some more wine for this.
So, let's get this party started, y'all. Hey, my sister, Mademoiselle.
That is the most amazing introduction I have ever heard.
Oh. Of myself and Madisyn, Brian Westley Johnson. Thank you for joining us on Saturday morning. You a life full of passion, purpose, and high quality living. See you next time. Bye. Hello and welcome to another edition of Soulivity Live, everyone. My name is Brian Westley Johnson, and I am so glad you joined us because once again, you picked the perfect moment to get inspired. We have a fantastic show for you today. But before we get started, I want to once again remind you that you can see a replay of this show or any of our other shows by visiting our YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe while you're there. You'll receive alerts and notifications every time we go live. So let's get to today's show, shall we? 2020. It was such a hectic, emotional roller coaster ride for all of us. I don't think any of us expected to be part of a worldwide pandemic. I mean, we couldn't travel anywhere, do the things we regularly did, or even go to see our loved ones for the certainty of putting them at risk. And then there were the protests of Black Lives Matter, ignited by another senseless death of an unarmed African American. I mean, wow, it was a full year indeed. And while all this was happening, Soulivity TV was providing you with programming to help you stay inspired and moving forward. And on Soulivity Live, I was honored to have so many great guests. So we thought we would have you join us and take a trip down memory lane with some of our favorite moments. It was hard because there were so many moments. So we hope you enjoy all the things that we put together. Now remember, we love your comments. So just post any of your comments or even questions to our live chat, and we'll try to get to as many of them either during the show or even after the show. So post away. Now, let's get to our first clip. Though this was in the middle of last year, this interview with astrology coach Sonja Francis still has some really good reasons to pay attention to your intentions this year. I asked her about what we needed to be aware of during the end of 2020 and through the new year. And this was her very, very lovely answer. Enjoy. What are some of the things that we need to do? I mean, specifically now to the end of the year, like what are some of the things that you kind of see that we need to do right now? And then as well as prepare for the new year into 2021, because again, as you said before, we've got all these different shifts happening. We have all these different things happening that are going on, that are going to happen.
Yes.
It's just whether or not we resist or flow.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's key here. One of the things that, astrology is only an interpretation of what we see out there in the universe, right? The way it can manifest in a lot of different ways, and people have free will. Everybody has free will, so each one of us is actually creating how we want that to manifest, right? And so it's important that first of all we take responsibility for being part of that creative process, right? That's important. The second thing that's important is to make sure that you keep your mind connected to your heart. Because when the mind gets disconnected from the heart, we tend to think things or do things that are not beneficial for everybody involved. And so I always say, one of my favorite things is to ask, spirit, or ask my higher self for whatever is the best for me and everybody else involved. Right? Asking for that, asking for that guidance. And I think tuning in a little bit more, tuning in with ourselves so that we can listen to the guidance that we're getting. Because the physical body is really quite incredible. It's an incredible instrument. Yeah. Every cell of your body is intelligent, and there's intelligence everywhere in your body. So being able to listen to that intelligence is really important, and to not get sidetracked and distracted by everything else that goes on out there in the world, because everyone's going to be dealing with this differently. Everyone has their own way of moving with this. Some people are going to be much more fearful or much more anxious than other people. And so it's important not to let yourself be, taken into the outer world by people who are maybe in a fearful place, right? So make sure that you take care of you. Take care of your fear level, take care of your anxiety level. Make sure you are centered and grounded, and that your heart is wide open, and that you trust. I think trust is a really big part of this process, that we know this is a seeding that's happening this year. And as we're trusting the process to unfold, and we're doing our best to contribute from a heartfelt place, from a holistic place, we will be able to create a future together that will be way, way better than what we have experienced up until now. And history will tell you, if you look back into history, you will see that even though there are pockets in history that are, that are where stuff happens that's not that amazing, right? Like wars, or, violence, or something where things happen that are pretty dark. There's still always the evolutionary process that happens within that. And we need to understand that, and we need to trust that. We need to know that, 100 years ago, people lived very differently than they live right now. And we have so much to be grateful for, and I think gratitude is also a really fantastic tool to work with over this year and over the next year.
The month is August, and the United States specifically has been part of the global pandemic for close to 5 months now. 165 people have died, 165,000 people have died, and there's a lot of anxiety, grief, and emotional trauma. These words and thoughts from our interview with Dr. Ebony Jade Hilton and motivational therapist Melva Johnson still ring true to me, though it's been many, many months later. Enjoy this clip. For each of you, I always want to give our audience, our viewers, something to take away, right? As I said on the top of the show, this isn't just about giving information. I think the information that both of you are giving is totally awesome. I mean, we need to hear it, even if it's hard for us to hear. Need to hear it so that we can make better decisions. Mom used to talk about, know better, you do better, right? And so for each of you, what are one or two things that our viewers can start today that will move the ball forward to us getting past this thing? And Mom, I'll go to you first.
I think the first thing is to acknowledge the pain, because this is really painful. When I go out, I wear the mask and what have you. But there are times when I look around and just see the situation that we're in, and I start crying. It's like our lives have come to this, so I would say acknowledge it. And number two, acknowledge it to yourself, and to make sure that you can share your experience with someone else. The third one is be open to being safe and protected, and safe and protecting in all levels of all of this, at home, at the grocery store, everywhere. And I do believe that we're going to get on the other side of this. And we can take a look at, when we get on the other side, the person that we became more of.
Thank you for that. Ebony, how about you? What are some things that, that 2 or 3 things that people can do today?
All right. Well, that was nice. My thought is that, this too shall pass, and to really rely on your inner peace, but also know to give people grace, because, we wrote a children's book saying we're going to be okay. What we know is that, unfortunately, at this point, 165,000 people have died. And some of those are someone's mother and father, and they may be a tiny little kid, and their life will never be what it was ever again. And the grief process that people go through may express itself in different ways, and that we have to start thinking more so on the scale of what's best for my community. And when I say community, I mean literally our global community at this point, but definitely the community in which you live and reside. How do I do things that might make me feel uncomfortable? You see people say, well, I can't breathe in this mask. Okay, then maybe you only need to go out to the grocery store for 15 minutes, and maybe you don't need to walk through the mall casually, right? Because it's literally costing people their lives. And for some people, seeing other people without a mask on now is a very big trigger for them, because if they have lost a family member, if they have lost a sibling who they had to see their final days not being able to breathe, and they see someone taking that kind of lightly in their grief process, it may hit them in a spot that they didn't even know was still very much sensitive for them. So I think point 1, 2, and 3 for me would be to think outside of self. And honestly, if we can band together as a nation, we can get through this. We will never be the same. We will never look the same. And maybe that's a good thing in some ways, because maybe this will force us to start thinking literally as the United States of America, and not as our individual pockets of whatever privilege we decide to hold on to for that moment in time. So,
wow, thank you both.
Yeah.
This has been awesome. This is exactly what I wanted to give our audience today. Just to make, wow. Now, in Daily Om founder Madisyn Taylor's book, which is Unmedicated, excuse me, she courageously describes her deep connection with her personal journey of battling mental illness and coming to cope with her past pains. In this clip, we talk about when she had her very first panic attack. And I mean, everybody, she was very, very, very young. So enjoy this clip. It's very powerful. You talked about the rabbit hole. The rabbit hole for you started, I mean, early. I mean, I was kind of teary, got emotional. I mean, just in the first few pages, because again, you really go deep and you really open your heart and tell people what your journey was from when you were a child. So like, when I look back at my childhood, I see so many early signs that I was in trouble and particularly vulnerable to being unwell. My body tended to react to mental distress with physical illness in one form or another. My first panic attack happened around the 3rd grade.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. And I have a son who's 11 now, so he just finished 5th grade, and I can't imagine him having a full-on panic attack in 3rd grade. And when I mean panic attack, I mean bolting upright out of bed, unable to breathe, thinking that I'm going to die. And it breaks my heart to think about going through that as a young child, and then not being able to tell anybody, because I couldn't understand what happened, and B, because I didn't have anyone trustworthy in my life to share that with. So I dealt with that on my own.
Well, and I mean, again, we were talking offline and sharing some of our own experiences growing up, and we both had at least one parent that dealt with mental illness slash emotional instability. And for you, as I read through again this forward, that's so beautifully written, that, you know, through a child's eyes, you know, because people, you have to realize that when you read this kind of stuff, I think a lot of times we think, oh, well, why didn't you just? No, no, no. You have to regress yourself back to when you were that age and see and kind of see it through those eyes. You didn't understand why your father acted the way that he did. And like most children, including me, I was that age, you internalized it.
Of course. Well, and you think it's normal because how you don't know any better. I wasn't going to friends' houses. I wasn't going to friends' houses until much later in my life, and then saying, wow, their family looks very different than my family. And my father was a rageaholic and an alcoholic, and he really shut me down at an early age. He taught me to stay quiet, to not use my voice. He taught me how to internalize, because if I used my voice, if I expressed my emotions, I suffered the wrath of his rage. And I lived, you know, I made a special little place in the closet of my bedroom, my little safe haven. So when he would go into his rages, I had somewhere safe to be. And so all of these skills he taught me that I took on as a young child, none of those served me later in life. Especially as a woman. As a woman, we need to use our voice. We need to be heard. We need to be strong. And he taught me the exact opposite of that. So I slowly shut down and shut down and shut down. Really, I think by the age of 8, I was probably most all the way shut down. And, you know, I didn't know also on top of it all that I was an extremely sensitive person. I'm an empath and I'm a psychic. So I've got all these feelers out constantly. And so when I met with rage from a human that's supposed to be loving me and that I'm scared to death of, imagine what that does to a normal kid, let alone a super psychic sensitive child who also knew nothing of what that meant on top of it all.
Right.
So yeah, and then 2 other people in my household, my brother and my mother, I had to deal with them as well. So we're kind of this big dysfunctional unit.
And I can only imagine, because I'm empathetic myself, that you're getting all this information in, right? You still are in the growing stages of being a child. So you had no way to process this and cognitively or rationally decide, oh, this is what's going on.
Right.
This is what's happening with you. You just internalize it. Like,
I also rewired my brain. It wired my brain incorrectly and set me up for failure, and it set me up for anxiety and depression.
hey everybody, we're going to take a quick commercial break and we'll be right back. Soulivity Magazine and Beyond Words Publishing want to remind you about the importance of continuing to follow public health guidelines to protect yourself, your loved ones, and your community. Please continue to wear a mask, wash your hands, and watch your distance. Please visit these sites for further information about how to stay safe from COVID-19 into the new year. Remember, love protects us.
Do you feel like you can be in better health? Do you feel like there's something missing towards your path of success? Hi, I'm Rachel Kaplan, owner and creator of Higher Health Now. I started this company 3 years ago to help my yoga community thrive off their yoga mat. What I realized is that there's people from all walks of life who need this training. Today, I work with professionals all over the world, explore what's holding them back from living their version of good health, and help them shed light on the action steps they need to take to bring about that positive change. Professionals like you, who want to be better in their work, better in their relationships, and take massive action towards living your life purpose. That's the meaning of higher health. I'm excited to meet you and show you the path towards living your higher health now.
And we're back. We're going to continue with our best of 2020 with another great clip. I just love Dr. Kathryn Tristan. And she wrote one of my favorite books for the year, and it's called Why Worry? And I asked her specifically, what drove a research scientist to write a book about worrying and other coping mechanisms? And of course, she had the perfect and lovely answer. So enjoy this next clip. Man, I am loving this book. I am really, really, really loving this book. Before we start digging into this, what made you write this? I mean, what was your inspiration? Where, I mean, you're a research scientist. You study the immune system, as I was saying in the opening. But there must be a connection for you, maybe even personally, that drove you to writing this fabulous book. So why don't we begin there?
No, you're absolutely right. You'd say, why is a scientist writing about worry? Unless you're writing about the biochemistry of worry. And the thing is, I'm writing from a personal standpoint. This book is totally from the heart in my effort to give back what I've learned, because I, for many years, had severe anxiety, an anxiety disorder, panic attacks. Was so bad for me that I was not able to leave the St. Louis area for over 10 years because I was afraid of having these panic attacks, and I thought maybe this was safe. And so I tried, some therapy, and never really did too much on the medicine, but tried various things. And I was able to live a pretty good life, raised 2 kids, had my job at the university. But I eventually was able to draw from a lot of different experiences from the mind, from the body, and the spirit. And being spiritual, once I learned these lessons, that is what helped me overcome this, and not just some of my worries, but all of my worries. And I was, you're still supposed to have worry, but I know how to deal with it now. And a lot of people don't. And this is my effort to give back some of the simple strategies that people can use to help themselves, because I still use these strategies for me. And so that's the whole point, is being able to bounce back from these challenges when you have them.
Wow. So everybody, she's practicing what she's preaching. So that's even better. Wow. See why I love her? Now, there are 2 especially important aspects of living that each of us must be aware of every day. And it's whether we are reacting to our environment or we are being responsive to it. There is a specific difference between these 2 concepts. Now, in my wonderful interview with Kim Stanwood Terranova, she's the author of The Technology of Intention, Activating the Power of the Universe Within You. We really dug into this difference and how we can be happy through understanding it. I think you're going to enjoy this one. Tell me about what it means for you when you're describing the power within us.
Yes, the power within us is that divine connection that each and every one of us has. And I really honor what each and every one of us call it. That I find that if we could embrace one another and know whether we call it God, spirit, the universe, an energetic force, is love. And that power is our divine connection. And I think of it like this, Brian. We are all these channels of light. And as we keep our channel clear for the connection that's always present, the connection's always there. Are we keeping our mind, body, and soul available to catch it so that we have direct access? We have it all the time. Are we using it all the time? So it's within us. With every breath we take that connection. It's our opportunity to keep the pathway, all the channels clear, which that is where the practice comes in, because that inner voice wants to speak up. We just have to ask empowering questions, listen in an open, discerning way, and then take inspired action from the questions, the answers, and then move into inspired action.
Right.
Over and over again.
Inspired action. Tell me, what's the big I?
The big eye of intention or inspired action? You big eyes, do you love that? I love that they're all the big eye. Inspired action is not just moving forward to check off a to-do list. I'm a great doer, and I had to learn how to come from my being nature, first within. So that's that divine connection within each of us.
Yeah.
To learn how to listen to that being so that my action isn't just a human doingness for outcome.
Yeah.
It's coming from inspiration. It's coming from, oh, I take a breath because I just caught an insight that is bigger than anything I ever could have thought, that that's the pathway I'm supposed to go. So in those times that were really hard for me, and my prayer was, my intention is to live an unstoppable faith. My intention is for divine clarity to come to me now. There was one day I was sitting there thinking, where are we going to live? And I'd been asking for clarity for months. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, in the middle of somewhere I never thought I'd be, I took a breath, and it was like in that moment, the answer came and went, Kim, this way. And as soon as I turned, I was like, and it took my breath away. And you know those moments, right? Where they take your breath away and you're like, oh my gosh, that's what I prayed for. That's what I asked for. And that was the crystal clear answer that I needed. But if I would have pushed for it months ago, just because it was a doing, I would have gone down the wrong path. But Ryan, you know, it takes all that patience and listening.
Oh, yeah.
I had to cultivate deep patience to really catch divine inspiration. And I had to become a really good listener.
You know, we were watching Iyanla Vanzant the other day. She has this monthly segment, and she was talking about spiritual warriors, and a spiritual warrior knows the difference between reactivity and responsiveness.
Absolutely.
And that, you know, and that there's this difference between the two. And I'm hearing that same message coming from you, which is so important.
Oh, I adore her, and I so appreciate her work.
Oh, man. Especially now.
I was just going to say that I have been quoting her so much for the last week. Yes, she is. Thank God.
Truth.
Yes.
The companion big I to inspire is intention, right?
Yes. Yes.
Let's dig a little deeper into intention. What's the specific definition of intention for you? And then my second question is, why is it so important?
So our intention, the power of intention, is that we have this wonderful power at our fingertips that is intention, which means we consciously create our lives. Intentions in themselves are lasered statements. They're the through line that is directing our inspired action. But our intentions are our aim. They are absolutely the statement that we put out into the universal field of consciousness of what we desire. They're not attached to any bit of how whatsoever. Our intentions are always positive, present, based in qualities, so that as we say to the universal field, this is my intention. My intention is to live in a space of unlimited love today. That's an intention. My intention is to connect with Brian and have this wonderful conversation today. That's an intention, because the universe is listening. Spirit just wants to say yes to everything we are placing. So we must be conscious of what we're placing on the altar of spirit, so that we are co-creation is clear. Because if we're not, it was like you said at the beginning of the show, if we wake up and our chatter is what isn't working in our lives, fear that's pulling through, we're still creating that.
Right.
So intention is the key to conscious creation.
Gotcha. This next clip is actually a 2-for-1. I actually spent an hour speaking with two amazing individuals, a poet and author, Jay Ivey, and Dr. Melva Green. She's a recognized therapist from the hit TV series Orders. Now, when I spoke to Jay, we discussed a powerful part from his book, Dear Father, Breaking the Cycle of Pain, where he discovered a surprising fact about his father that changed his view of this most important man in his life. And with Melva, she goes through some of the important steps of realizing and actualizing change in your life and in your home, actually. It's from her book, Breathing Room, Open Your Heart by Decluttering Your Home. These are very two enlightened people, and I think you're going to enjoy this clip as well. So enjoy. I remember something in the book where you had, I guess, either you hadn't seen your dad in a while.
Yeah.
And the first time that you saw him, he told you, number one, it's like two big shocks, right? You know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
And everybody, you got to go get the book to read all the details. So I'm giving you a little snippet here. One, you found out about a brother that you didn't know about.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Wait a minute, I got a brother? But then he also said that he had been murdered.
Yeah.
How old were you, first of all, when that happened?
That actually happened before we reconnected. So when I was still a kid, I had to been 12, 13. He called me. It was around my birthday. He called me up and just snapping on me. You know, he hadn't been living in the house. He called, saying, "Man, you ain't been in these streets, man. You being good. You ain't doing this and doing that." I'm like, "Yeah, Dad. Man, I'm in trouble and I hadn't even done anything." Like,
right.
And that's when he told me. He's like, "Yeah, you had another brother and he just got killed," and it just blew my mind. One, to know that I had another brother who turned out to be 2 years, I believe he was 2 years older than me, and then to know that he was murdered. And then, I mean, you know, as a kid, I'm trying to process it all. Like, man, brother, like, man, what he look like? Where did he live? Like, who was his mama? It was all these questions that went unanswered, you know, because he's just now, you know, in retrospect and being older, I'm able to look at it from a different angle. Like, oh, he was a father who lost his child. He was in shock. He was traumatized. He was hurt. Right. He was devastated.
But he's trying to pull you close and protect you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yes. I can only imagine what kind of pain that caused him as a father, and then to know that he has biologically, it was two other brothers, or two other sons, but he raised my older brother as well since like he was 6 months old. So he was 3 other sons that he was worried about, and I can only imagine what that went through for me. It was like, man, it was shocking. So it wasn't until I wrote the book that I actually found out his name. I started calling family members and really digging research, like, man, who, you know, I know he had another son, like, who was he? And that's when I was able to find out his name was Damon. And yeah, that's pretty much the extent of what I know about him. I'm really still wanting to find out more about him, like, who is his mother and where are they? Are there things that she can tell me about him? Yeah, but it was shocking to say the least. Yeah.
Wow. I love the fact that the 3-part method that you're talking about is the SLICE method. First of all, what does SLICE stand for?
Are we telling all of this, or people going to buy the book?
Oh, they're going to buy the book. They better buy, y'all better buy the book. There's so much in there, everybody. I mean, we're giving you like this much of it, but it is deep. Right. What does SLICE stand for?
So the essence SLICE stands for stop. And it's just as simple as that, stop. Most of the clutter, most of the things that we overcollect, overconsume, it's because we're moving too fast. We're not even aware of what's going on around us, inside of us. So to stop, to slow down, right? To take a moment to actually become aware of what is in front of you. The L is to listen. To listen within, to listen to what arises when you're in your space. So is there guilt? Is there shame? Is there sadness? So listen for these emotions and then speak to those emotions. Don't run away from them.
Yeah.
Don't avoid them. Like, to actually listen to those parts of yourself that have been suffering inside more often than not. And I is to intend or to set the intention for what it is that you would like to have in your space, right? So a lot of times we just have a lot of stuff and we don't even know why we have the stuff. We don't even know we don't know why we have the stuff. We don't remember we have the stuff, right? So setting an intention for what is it that we would like to have in our space? Would we like to attract love? Okay, so if we'd like to attract love, then, you know, you might want to clear off that side of your bed that's filled with clothes and books and whatnot, right?
Wow, we gotta make the space.
You gotta make the space, right? And so the CE is for clearing the energy, and that's what the principles lead you into doing, being able to actually clear the energy that has been stagnant in your space, in your heart, in your home, so that you can get a home that you love and that loves you back.
I love this. We'll be right back after a brief commercial. More to come, y'all. More to come.
Hi there, Sheila Applegate here with some exciting news. I've joined the incredible Soulivity team as the host of the new Consciously Awesome live show, where I will be sharing insights to help you discover your full brilliance and claim the vibrant life you deserve. To add to the awesomeness, I'm going to be inviting some of my favorite people from around the world, including many of the guests that you fell in love with on my Live Sensate podcast and Enchanted One radio show. So tune in every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on Soulivity TV, to join the fun. And remember to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss a single episode. Have an awesome week, and I will see you on Wednesday.
Life is full of moments. And when sickness breaks your momentum, from the 5 a.m. stomach bug, or stress and anxiety at work, don't forget you have Teladoc. Great care options by phone, video, or app. 24/7 access to doctors. And access to therapists 7 days a week. From anywhere you are. Day or night. Whatever it is, we're always ready to help. So you can get back to enjoying life's best moments faster. Life is good. Enjoy it well.
And welcome back. There is nothing like the love between a father and a son. Now, here's a clip from Jude Morrow, my interview with Jude. He's the author of Why Does Daddy Always Look So Sad? He was talking about his son, Ethan. It's so heartfelt and it's so warm. I had to include it as one of our memorable interviews for 2020. This is just a wonderful and powerful segment. And it's pretty funny too. So enjoy. Question: who is Ethan?
Ethan is my hero. He is my son. He was born on the 23rd of July, 2013. And before Ethan was born, we just talked about it, I graduated from university, had started working as a social worker. And at that time, I really thought I had my life together, so to speak. And my perception of being autistic was that it was something for children. It was something that I'd merely grown out of because I had become a college graduate. I had learned to drive a car and learned to live very independently. And whenever Ethan was born, it was a huge life change for me. As much as I love and adore my son, the change of fatherhood, and it's not really a clear landscape that you can see very far in the distance. For me, it was quite foggy, and I didn't really know what to expect, and everything was so far ahead. And I mean, babies don't stay babies forever. They learn to walk, they learn to use the bathroom, they learn to eat different things. And it was just this constant cycle of change, because the first 3 years of any child's life is jam-packed. Mine was jam-packed too. But whenever I was, raising Ethan, it was very difficult because of that constant change. And a lot of the feelings that I had whenever I was small started to come back. The self-doubt started to come back. It was, I'm not really managing this change well, and it nearly made me not feel good enough. And this was a common theme with me, and the kind of the struggle was so apparent externally that Ethan actually asked my mother the now iconic question, that one there.
What?
So
wow.
That was where the title of the book actually came from. And it was then where I made a start on my own acceptance journey, and I knew that I couldn't continue to struggle and view my life negatively forever. And to kind of build that relationship with him, it was a journey that was absolutely necessary, and I loved every second of it. And I would have said in the past that I really hated my schooling and that, but that's because I had that negative bias overwhelm everything else. And whenever I reached, and I didn't reach the end of the journey, it's a journey I'm still very much on, I look back on it a lot more fondly. And Ethan actually views it quite fondly, because I've read the book to him twice, and he's making strides and trying to read it himself, even though he's only 6, and he's not autistic. He's not like me, although he's full of fun. He loves art and animals and watering plants, and he loves being outside. And yeah, he's just a whirlwind of happiness. And of course, with everything that's going on with COVID right now, I haven't seen him as much, so I do miss him terribly as well.
Oh, well, I have a copy of your book, but you have a special copy of your book because you have a special autograph, right?
I do. This is my most prized possession in the world, and whenever I self-published the book, it's nearly a year ago now, Brian. The 13th of May, this was self-published, and if you bought it last year from Amazon, this is what you got. And I did some book signings, and I met groups, and that's how the kind of speaking thing evolved. And this one was a signed copy that was raffled in a like and share competition, and the winner didn't claim it. But what's so special about this one is that, whilst yes, it is signed by me, it's signed by Ethan too. And it's like a time capsule, because Ethan's handwriting's so much better now. He can write much better than that. That's the 5-year-old Ethan's autograph there as it is, and it's just like a time capsule as to that time whenever the actual book journey itself started.
Oh, didn't you love that? I always love that one. Now, we have one more quick clip to go with the time that we have left. And this one's really, really deep and really, really special. It's a little longer than the other ones. Amidst the ever-growing crisis of the pandemic, another painful blow was struck with the brutal death of George Floyd at the hands of police. This event struck at a trauma which ran deep across specifically the Black community, but the global community as well. Last year, Elaine Clayton, author of the book Making Mark, The Art of Intuitive Stream Drawing, and Katie Silcox, who's the author of Healthy, Happy, Sexy. They both joined me, and we had this discussion that was on the opportunities that exist for us to learn, grow, and heal during this unique period of our experience. This is a very, 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 very powerful conversation. It's funny that you talk about, Katie, that you were talking about, making sure that we were moving through this and into a deeper understanding and what's next, because that was my next question. Where do we go from here, right? I think, Elaine, you were talking before about some of the opportunities that exist in this moment. Because, Katie, I think you were alluding to this. While there is pain, while there is these uncomfortable feelings, while there is these structural things that have been around forever, there's also opportunities that always exist for us. We just needed to choose them, right? You know better, you do better, right? But it's hard. So, Elaine, I'm going to go to you because you had started this part of it.
Okay.
What are some of, let's dig deep into some of these opportunities that exist. Because I think, Katie, you were talking about this too, and I think it's important that we talk about the opportunities that exist for all of us and start focusing in on that part of it so we can move toward it, right? So I'll hand the floor to you.
Okay. Well, I love what you said, Katie, because I had about 15 years ago developed this intuitive stream drawing creative meditation method and a way to develop through visual imagery deeper intuitive intelligence, because I felt from years ago when I did children's books that kids, we weren't talking about empathy. When we were young, I think we were in fight or flight mode from day one in school. We were conditioned to accept fight or flight mode as a way of being. And when you're in that reptilian brain, like you were saying, Katie, you're not using your intuitive, creative, spiritual, emotionally open brain is not operating. You're shut down. You are only trying to survive, not being humiliated and not being attacked in some way. So I think that one of the things, one opportunity, and again, we've all been doing what we've been doing before these really momentous times, because I think we knew that this was coming, or that we're just being ourselves in it. Having a way to center and to go inward is so essential, because if we don't do that within ourselves, how do we bring that conscious awareness of that, even being aware that we're in fight or flight mode? We have to have some conditioning that we didn't get when we were young. Nobody asked me, how do you feel about your math problem? Nobody asked me how I felt. They didn't even encourage us to, talk to each other about how someone was suffering next to us. And I'm not criticizing everybody. I've been a teacher. I know you have to have a job, but I'm just saying our overall society, after all these hundreds of years, has focused so much on rational and logical thinking as the only way to get answers. And you have to go outside and you have to pay for it, and it's going to hurt. And that we have forgotten that we're natural born creators. We have to do something with that, or we're so disconnected from our ability to be intuitively tuned in and empathic toward each other. If we can't know where we are in our consciousness, we're really lost when we come together. And I think that's part of why it's so volatile. So, my opportunity, I see it opening and, expanding, because people are so hurting that they want relief. So the stream drawing is a way to, recapture the way you freely drew without feeling criticized when you were a toddler. And I realized over the many years, people would say, I love to draw, but I'm not good at it. So they have lost that natural compulsion to make a mark, to take a blank surface and put their own voice on it, to actually be present. No one encouraged that empowerment much. So you have to use your non-dominant hand and close your eyes. And it's a little bit more fun than kind of being all jazzed up and nervous and going like this. And you're not really meditating. You're like, you got the checklist in your head. And yoga is great for, because you concentrate on your breathing and you're doing these really important moves. Drawing is another impulse that we have as a natural human innate action. We just want to. So I'm trying to help people meditate while they're getting empowered with creative energy. And I think it helps release some of the tension while you then reflect on what you felt while you drew and on the drawing itself. So that is encouraging a conversation that is intuitive, that is starting with me here in my heart and mind. And it's giving both sides of the brain a chance to work. And then maybe I can go out and gaze upon other people with appreciation of their worth. That's what it comes down to. We are missing out on loving each other. And the system is doing it and reinforcing it. And, you know, people that can't say Black Lives Matter, when that oppression has been specific and particular and only for hundreds of years, why can't you say it? And again, you know, everyone's going to find their way through this, but I just feel like we are shut down at the heart chakra. But we're open. We're starting to open.
Bravo. You got me on that one. Got me speaking. Because I think the question that I've actually been asking myself, and even with some friends of mine, have been, where do we really start? Right? And it can't, in some of the, you know, there's politics and laws and all that kind of stuff, but there has to be something higher, deeper, that affects the change that we really are seeking, right? Katie, how about you? What do you feel are the opportunities? I think you were moving into that, and I want to make sure that we're continuing that line.
I loved what Elaine said, and I think we're, you know, in Tantra and Ayurveda, they understood this time and they called it the Kali Yuga, the age of disillusionment, the age of violence, darkness, you know, the age of trial and tribulation. And yet it's also the time when there's the most opportunity to come to God, to come to the light, to come to love, whatever you want to call it, to come home. And I really feel that in me. Like I sense as a deeply intuitive person, the way in which we are when something's actually too unbearable to actually feel inside of our own body, because all of us are walking around with fear and rage and anger and hurt, and all of us are the children of many times like emotionally immature parents and grandparents, you know, because we're all walking around with that. And I think the African American community holds this very special form of that pain body. That for whatever reason, this moment is asking all of us to hold that with you guys. And it's a great honor to do that. But at the same time, it's triggering all of that unresolved stuff in everyone else. And so when you're just really not ready to deal with that and tend to it with kindness, with compassion, it's a huge job, right? When you're not ready to tend to your own anger and your own violence, and what do? We talk about other people, you know, and like
distraction,
yeah, distraction and this kind of like, I call it this othering syndrome. And I'll be honest, like when Donald Trump won, I was so upset. I actually did a tantric practice where I felt all the rage and all the fear and all the anger that was there as a woman. You know, that was a big deal for us when he got elected. It was just a huge punch in the gut for women and for oppressed communities. But what I'll say is it was hurting me so bad that I started this tantric practice where you hold your enemy in your arms as a baby.
Oh.
And I hated it. I hated this practice.
I don't want this man baby in my arms.
Like I'm holding my baby Trump. And over time, I actually began to see him becoming more and more young in my arms to that moment of being a baby. And I looked across his life and I saw how he was the child of a father that could never love him. And he was always, you know, and all these insights came to me. Now, I'm not saying that in any way that absolves him or that we need to have him in office. But what I'm saying is it melted that hardening on my own heart.
Right.
And so even though this is a tall ask, what I think is being asked of us is, who have you thrown out of your heart? Because it's only hurting you. You know, and I think, you know, I could say so much about this, but like what began to happen was I began to feel better. And I began to feel the essence of who I am, which is not a woman. It's not a woman from the South. It's not a white lady. It's not all those labels, right? Author, yoga teacher. It just began to be that I began to identify with the part of me that is completely unchanging, which is, as Elaine said, love. And the second thing I want to say is I have something, I'm actually don't really teach yoga anymore. I have something called body church. You know, the church itself is crumbling, and the church used to be a place that you would go to move and dance, and there was drumming. And what I just want to recommend, as Elaine was saying, the drawing, also the dancing and the moving, because emotion cannot be processed without movement. So I began to meditate with love on the enemy, the perceived enemy, and to really keep the body moving, which compounded during this coronavirus time. Everyone's becoming, in many places, more sedentary and more locked in, when actually we need the opposite. We need to move. And if we can, we actually need to move together.
I love it. I love it. I love this conversation. I'm so glad you ladies are here. This is exactly the kind of conversation I wanted to have, and I wanted it to be a gift to everyone in our community. So what did you think? Yeah, I know. They're great, right? Great clips. We're glad that you're here. Glad that you have been a part of our world here at Soulivity TV, and we got a whole lot more to go. Listen, we have a couple of minutes. I want to remind everybody that coming up, we have another Truth and Power event. This is our event for celebrating African American history as we celebrate Black History Month. We're discussing the facts and history of African Americans post-slavery and its effect on current conditions within this community of color and the American society more broadly. You can find out more information by going to our YouTube channel. You can even set a reminder for the show, for the event, I should say. And I really, really hope to see you there. We got the panel is amazing. There's going to be a lot of great information shared, a lot of connective tissue between the past and present day and how we move forward. So I hope to see you there. Listen, again, on behalf of everyone here at Soulivity, I want to say thank you for supporting us. Thank you for being part of our community. And again, we have a whole lot more inspiration to give you. So on behalf of everyone here, it's my pleasure to say I'm Brian Westley Johnson, thanking you for joining us today. And as always, I'm wishing you passion, purpose, and a high quality life. I'll see you next time, everybody. My name is Brian Westley Johnson, and I want to welcome you to another edition of Soulivity Live.
Hey, my sister, how are you?
It's the lens, right? Yeah. we might need some more wine for this.
So, let's get this party started, y'all. Hey, my sister, mademoiselle.
Hey, that is the most amazing introduction I have ever heard.
Oh.
Of myself and Madisyn, Brian Westley Johnson, thank you for joining us on Saturday morning. A life full of passion, purpose, and high quality living. See you next time. Bye.